What up? We back. We're so back. Oh, hello. What's up? I love when y'all beat me here. It makes me so happy. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm back. Business trip was great. So happy to be home now. And we're gonna read chapter 9 of book 4, Shelob's Lair. Shelob? I say Shelob. I don't know. It's a she. And I really find that important to highlight. Shelob. So that's what we're doing. Hello. Thank y'all for being here. I think we're just going to dig right in. I did not have time to go back and have another look at the Stairs of Cirith to find other things to talk about besides how good Tolkien is at describing horrible, terrible things effectively. And how much Frodo and Sam love each other. Because that shit ain't subtext, babe. That's just the text. And I don't know. I keep getting comments on my Respect the Lore video about like, oh, so because like people read them as gay, that makes them automatically gay and they can't be straight? No. Literally no one ever said that. Okay? It's just platonic love and romantic love often look much more similar than we would expect. And I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking that maybe they smooch sometimes. Like, that's not personally how I read it, but I would never stand in anyone's way to read it that way if it makes them identify with the text more closely or just makes them smile or laugh or giggle. That's the whole point of the thing, isn't it? Pleasure. So, this chapter is extremely important because it validates my arachnophobia. Happy we can do this for you here today. When I saw Return of the King in theaters, I saw it with my friend who was super scared of spiders, and it was she and I sitting next to each other, and then a few rows back our dads were sitting together, and during the Shelob scenes her dad kept throwing popcorn at her. And at the time I thought it was really funny, but now as an adult woman I'm like, that's trauma, babe. But yeah, we're just gonna get on with chapter 9. Yeah, okay, wait. SH, you used lens in the video and people are hearing that as a non-removable welded on lenses. Like, genuinely, you shouldn't have to take a literature class to understand what like reading through a lens means, but it just means adopting a certain point of view in order to get a different reading out of a text. And like, why wouldn't you do this with Lord of the Rings, one of the richest texts of all time? Like, literally, I mean it when I say every time I read this book, I learn something new. And I can't do that if I just wear the same fucking pair of glasses every time. I've got 20/20 vision, babe. I got to switch out the lenses to get something new out of the text. Why is it so scary for people to like consider that the characters might relate to one another in a way that's unfamiliar? Why does that freak people out so bad? I personally find that exciting. Whatever. But yeah, huge dad L. Again, at the time I thought it was funny, but I've grown up a little bit and I'm like, pretty sure that's not a good move when your kid is terrified of spiders and they're in like what, 6th or 7th grade? Probably not the best. Anyway, book 4, chapter 9, Shelob's Lair. Let's fucking go. It may indeed have been daytime now, as Gollum said, but the hobbits could see little difference, unless perhaps the heavy sky above was less utterly black, more like a great roof of smoke, while instead of the darkness of deep night, which lingered still in cracks and holes, a gray blurring shadow shrouded the stony world about them. They passed on, Gollum in front and the hobbits now side by side, up the long ravine between the piers and columns of torn and weathered rock, standing like huge unshapen statues on either hand. There was no sound. Some way ahead, a mile or so perhaps, was a great gray wall, a last huge upthrusting mass of mountain stone. Darker it loomed, and steadily it rose as they approached, until it towered up high above them, shutting out the view of all that lay beyond. Deep shadow lay before its feet. Sam sniffed the air. Ugh, that smell, he said. It's getting stronger and stronger. Presently, they were under the shadow, and there in the midst of it they saw the opening of a cave. This is the way in, said Gollum softly. This is the entrance to the tunnel. He did not speak its name, Torek Ungol, Shelob's lair. Out of it came a stench, not the sickly odor of decay in the meads of Morgul, but a foul reek, as if filth unnameable were piled and hoarded in the dark within. Blech. Is this the only way, Smeagol? Said Frodo. Yes, yes, he answered. Yes, we must go this way now. Do you mean to say you've been through this hole? Said Sam. Whew! But perhaps you don't mind bad smells. Gollum's eyes glinted. He doesn't know what we minds, does he, precious? No, he doesn't. But Smeagol can bear things, yes. He's been through. Oh, yes, right through. It's the only way. And what makes the smell, I wonder, said Sam. It's like, well, I wouldn't like to say. Some beastly hole of the orcs, I'll warrant, with 100 years of their filth in it. Well, said Frodo, orcs or no, if it's the only way, we must take it. Yes, Marxaldehyde. Filth Unnameable could be a band name, albeit with a bit of workshopping. I mean, just put it in that like metal text where like you can barely read it unless it's at a low angle. Filth Unnameable, like that kind of whips ass. I would go to that show. Drawing a deep breath, they passed inside. Like, in a few steps, they were in utter and impenetrable dark. Not since the lightless passages of Moria had Frodo or Sam known such darkness, and if possible here it was deeper and denser. There were airs moving, and echoes, and a sense of space. Here, the air was still, stagnant, heavy, and sound fell dead. They walked, as it were, in a black vapor wrought of veritable darkness itself. Yeah, as it breathed, brought blindness. Oop, nope, let me start that sentence over. Oh, babe. They walked, as it were, in a black vapor wrought of veritable darkness itself that, as it was breathed, brought blindness not only to the eyes but to the mind, so that even the memory of colors and of forms and of any light faded out of thought. Night always had been, and always would be, and night was all. Whew! But for a while they could still feel, and indeed the senses of their feet and fingers at first seemed sharpened almost painfully. The walls felt, to their surprise, smooth, and the floor, save for a step now and again, was straight and even, going ever up at the same stiff slope. The tunnel was high and wide, so wide that, though the hobbits walked abreast, only touching the side walls with their outstretched hands, they were separated, cut off, alone in the darkness. Gollum had gone in first and seemed to be only a few steps ahead. While they were still able to give heed to such things, they could hear his breath hissing and gasping just in front of them. But after a time their senses became duller, both touch and hearing seemed to grow numb, and they kept on, groping, walking, on and on, mainly by the force of the will with which they had entered, will to go through, and desire to come at last to the high gate beyond. Before they had gone very far, perhaps, but time and distance soon passed out of his reckoning. Sam on the right, feeling the wall, was aware that there was an opening at the side. For a moment, he caught a faint breath of some air less heavy, and then they passed it by. There's more than one passage here, he whispered with an effort. It seemed hard to make his breath give any sound. It's as orc-like a place as ever there could be. After that, first he on the right and then Frodo on the left, past 3 or 4 such openings, some wider, some smaller. But there was as yet no doubt of the main way, for it was straight and did not turn, and still went steadily up. But how long was it? How much more of this would they have to endure, or could they endure? The breathlessness of the air was growing as they climbed, and now they seemed often in the blind dark to sense some resistance thicker than the foul air. As they thrust forward, they felt things brush against their heads or against their hands, long tentacles or hanging growths, perhaps. They could not tell what they were, and still the stench grew. It grew until almost it seemed to them that smell was the only clear sense left to them, and that was for their torment. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. How many had they passed in this lightless hole? Hours, days, weeks rather. Sam left the tunnel side and shrank towards Frodo, and their hands met and clasped, and so together they still went on. At length, Frodo, groping along the left-hand wall, came suddenly to a void. Almost he fell sideways into the emptiness. Here was some opening in the rock far wider than any they had yet passed, and out of it came a reek so foul and a sense of lurking malice so intense that Frodo reeled. And at that moment Sam too lurched and fell forwards. Lurking Malice is another good band name. Fighting off both the sickness and the fear, Frodo gripped Sam's hand. Up, he said in a hoarse breath without voice. It all comes from here, the stench and the peril. Now for it, quick. Calling up his remaining strength and resolution, he dragged Sam to his feet and forced his own limbs to move. Sam stumbled beside him. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, at last 6 steps. Maybe they had passed the dreadful unseen opening, but whether that was so or not, suddenly it was easier to move, as if some hostile will for the moment had released them. They struggled on, still hand in hand. But almost at once they came to a new difficulty. The tunnel forked, or so it seemed, and in the dark they could not tell which was the wider way, or which kept nearer to the straight. Which should they take, the left or the right? They knew of nothing to guide them, yet a false choice would almost certainly be fatal. Which way has Gollum gone? Panted Sam, and why didn't he wait? Smeagol, said Frodo, trying to call. Smeagol! But his voice croaked, and the name fell dead almost as it left his lips. There was no answer, not an echo, not even a tremor in the air. He's really gone this time, I fancy, muttered Sam. I guess this is just exactly where he meant to bring us. Gollum, if I ever lay hands on you again, you'll be sorry for it. Presently, groping and fumbling in the dark, they found that the opening on the left was blocked. Either it was a blind, or else some great stone had fallen in the passage. This can't be the way, Frodo whispered. Right or wrong, we must take the other. And quick, Sam panted. There's something worse than Gollum about. I can feel something looking at us. They had not gone more than a few yards when, from behind them, came a sound, startling and horrible in the heavy, padded silence. A gurgling, bubbling noise, and a long, venomous hiss. They wheeled round, but nothing could be seen. Still as stones they stood, staring, waiting, for they did not know what. It's a trap, said Sam, and he laid his hand upon the hilt of his sword, and as he did so, he thought of the darkness of the barrow whence it came. I wish old Tom was near us now, he thought. Then, as he stood, darkness about him and a blackness of despair and anger in his heart, it seemed to him that he saw a light in his mind, almost unbearably bright at first, a sun ray to the eyes of one long hidden in a windowless pit. Then the light became color, green, gold, silver, white. Far off, as in a little picture drawn by elven fingers, he saw the Lady Galadriel standing on the grass in Lorien, and gifts were in her hands. And you, ring-bearer, he heard her say, remote but clear, for you I have prepared this. The bubbling hiss drew nearer, and there was a creaking as of some great jointed thing that moved with slow purpose in the dark. A reek came on before it. Master, master, said Sam, and life and urgency came back into his voice. The lady's gift, the star glass, a light to you in dark places, she said it was to be. The star glass. The star glass, muttered Frodo, as one answering out of sleep, hardly comprehending. Why, yes! Why had I forgotten it? A light when all other lights go out. And now, indeed, light alone can help us. Dog. Whew. Slowly, his hand went to his bosom, and slowly he held aloft the phial of Galadriel. For a moment it glimmered, faint as a rising star struggling in heavy earthward mists, and then, as its power waxed and hope grew in Frodo's mind, it began to burn, and kindled to a silver flame, a minute heart of dazzling light, as though Erendil had himself come down from the high sunset paths with the last Silmaril upon his brow. The darkness receded from it until it seemed to shine in the center of a globe of airy crystal, and the hand that held it sparkled with white fire. Frodo gazed in wonder at this marvelous gift that he had so long carried, not guessing its full worth and potency. Seldom had he remembered it on the road until they came to Morgul Vale, and never had he used it for fear of its revealing light. Aya Erendil Elenion and Kalima, he cried, and knew not what he had spoken, for it seemed that another voice spoke through his, clear, untroubled by the foul air of the pit. But other potencies there are in Middle-earth, powers of night, and they are old and strong. And she that walked in the darkness had heard the elves cry that cry far back in the deeps of time, and she had not heeded it, and it did not daunt her now. Even as Frodo spoke, he felt a great malice bent upon him, and a deadly regard considering him. Not far down the tunnel, between them and the opening where they had reeled and stumbled, he was aware of eyes growing visible, two great clusters of many-windowed eyes. The coming menace was unmasked at last. The radiance of the star-glass was broken and thrown back from their thousand facets, but behind the glitter a pale, deadly fire began steadily to glow within, a flame kindled in some deep pit of evil thought. Monstrous and abominable eyes they were, bestial and yet filled with purpose and with hideous delight, gloating over their prey trapped beyond all hope of escape. Frodo and Sam, horror-stricken, began slowly to back away, their own gaze held by the dreadful stare of those baleful eyes. But as they backed, so the eyes advanced. Frodo's hand wavered, and slowly the file drooped. Then, suddenly, released from the holding spell to run a little while in vain panic for the amusement of the eyes, they both turned and fled together. But even as they ran, Frodo looked back and saw with terror that at once the eyes came leaping up behind. The stench of death was like a cloud about him. "Stand! Stand!" he cried desperately. "Running is no use." Slowly, the eyes crept nearer. "Galadriel!" he called, and gathering his courage, he lifted up the file once more. The eyes halted. For a moment, their regard relaxed, as if some hint of doubt troubled them. Then Frodo's heart flamed within him, and without thinking what he did, whether it was folly or despair or courage, he took the file in his left hand, and with his right hand drew his sword. Sting flashed out, and the sharp elven blade sparkled in the silver light, but at its edges a blue fire flickered. Then, holding the star aloft and the bright sword advanced, Frodo, Hobbit of the Shire, walked steadily down to meet the eyes. They wavered. Doubt came into them as the light approached. One by one they dimmed, and slowly they drew back. No brightness so deadly had ever afflicted them before. From sun and moon and star they had been safe underground, but now a star had descended into the very earth. Still it approached, and the eyes began to quail. One by one they all went dark. They turned away, and the great bulk beyond the light's reach heaved its huge shadow in between. They were gone. "Master! Master!" cried Sam. He was close behind, his own sword drawn and ready. "Stars and glory! But the elves would make a song of that if ever they heard of it. And may I live to tell them and hear them sing. But don't go on, master. Don't go down to that den. Now's our only chance. Now let's get out of this foul hole." And so back they turned once more, first walking and then running, for as they went the floor of the tunnel rose steeply, and with every stride they climbed higher above the stenches of the unseen lair, and strength returned to limb and heart. But still the hatred of the Watcher lurked behind them, blind for a while perhaps, but undefeated, still bent on death. And now there came a flow of air to meet them, cold and thin. The opening, the tunnel's end, at last it was before them. Panting, yearning for a roofless place, they flung themselves forward, and then, in amazement, they staggered, tumbling back. The outlet was blocked with some barrier, but not of stone. Soft and a little yielding it seemed, and yet strong and impervious. Air filtered through, but not a glimmer of any light. Once more they charged and were hurled back. Holding aloft the file, Frodo looked, and before him he saw a grayness which the radiance of the star-glass did not pierce and did not illuminate, as if it were a shadow that that being cast by no light could dissipate. Ooh, ooh! Across the width and height of the tunnel, a vast web was spun, orderly as the web of some huge spider, but denser woven and far greater, and each thread was as thick as rope. Sam laughed grimly. Cobwebs, he said, is that all? Cobwebs. But what a spider! Have at 'em! Down with 'em! In a fury, he hewed at them with his sword, but the thread that he struck did not break. It gave a little and then sprang back like a plucked bowstring, turning the blade and tossing up both sword and arm. 3 times Sam struck with all his force, and at last one single cord of all the countless cords snapped and twisted, curling and whipping through the air. One end of it lashed Sam's hand, and he cried out in pain, starting back and drawing his hand across his mouth. It will take days to clear the road like this, he said. What's to be done? Have those eyes come back? No, not to be seen, said Frodo, but I still feel that they are looking at me, or thinking about me, making some other plan, perhaps. If this light were lowered, or if it failed, they would quickly come again. Trapped in the end, said Sam bitterly, his anger rising again above weariness and despair. Gnats in a net. May the curse of Faramir bite that Gollum and bite him quick. That would not help us now, said Frodo. Come, let us see what Sting can do. It is an elven blade. There were webs of horror in the dark ravines of Beleriand where it was forged. But you must be the guard and hold back the eyes. Here, take the star glass. Do not be afraid. Hold it up and watch. Ooh. Then Frodo stepped up to the great gray net and hewed it with a wide, sweeping stroke, drawing the bitter edge swiftly across a ladder of close-strung cords, and at once springing away. The blue gleaming blade shore through them like a scythe through grass, and they leaped and writhed and then hung loose. A great rent was made. Stroke after stroke he dealt until at last all the web within his reach was shattered, and the upper portion blew and swayed like a loose veil in the incoming wind. The trap was broken. Come, cried Frodo, on, on! Wild joy at their escape from the very mouth of despair suddenly filled all his mind. His head whirled as with a draught of potent wine. He sprang out, shouting as he came. It seemed light in that dark land to his eyes that had passed through the den of night. The great smokes had risen and grown thinner, and the last hours of a somber day were passing. The red glare of Mordor had died away in sullen gloom. Yet it seemed to Frodo that he looked upon a morning of sudden hope. Almost he had reached the summit of the wall. Only a little higher now. The cleft, Cirith Ungol, was before him, a dim notch in the black ridge, and the horns of rock darkling in the sky on either side. A short race, a sprinter's course, and he would be through. The pass, Sam, he cried, not heeding the shrillness of his voice that, released from the choking airs of the tunnel, rang out now, high and wild. The pass! Run! Run, and we'll be through before anyone can stop us. Sam came up behind as fast as he could urge his legs, but glad as he was to be free, he was uneasy, and as he ran, he kept on glancing back at the dark arch of the tunnel, fearing to see eyes, or some shape beyond his imagining, spring out in pursuit. Too little did he or his master know of the craft of Shelob. She had many exits from her lair. There age-long she had dwelt, an evil thing in spider form, even such as one of old had lived in the land of the elves in the west that is now under the sea, such as Beren fought in the mountains of terror in Doriath, and so came to Luthien upon the green sward amid the hemlocks in the moonlight long ago. How Shelob came there, flying from ruin, no tale tells, for out of the dark years few tales have come. But still, she was there, who was there before Sauron and before the first stone of Barad-dûr, and she served none but herself, drinking the blood of elves and men, bloated and grown fat with endless brooding on her feasts, weaving webs of shadow, for all living things were her food, and her vomit darkness. Far and wide her lesser broods, bastards of the miserable mates, her own offspring that she slew, spread from glen to glen, from the Efelduath to the eastern hills, to Dol Guldur and the fastness of Mirkwood. But none could rival her, Shelob the Great, last child of Ungoliant to trouble the unhappy world. Already, years before, Gollum had beheld her, Smeagol, who pried into all dark holes, and in past days he had bowed and worshipped her, and the darkness of her evil will walked through all the ways of his weariness beside him, cutting him off from light and from regret. And he had promised to bring her food. But her lust was not his lust. Little she knew of or cared for towers or rings or anything devised by mind or hand, who only desired death for all others, mind and body, and for herself a glut of life, alone, swollen till the mountains could no longer hold her up and the darkness could not contain her. My fucking bitch. Ooh, I love her. But that desire was far away, and long now had she been hungry, lurking in her den, while the power of Sauron grew, and light and living things forsook his borders, and the city in the valley was dead, and no elf or man came near, only the unhappy orcs. Poor food and wary, but she must eat, and however busily they delved new winding passages from the pass and from their tower, ever she found some way to snare them. But she lusted for sweeter meat, and Gollum had brought it to her. Yo, what up, chat? Zephyr. Yes, daughter of physical darkness. Love it. Ron, Shelob needs better PR. I think this is kind of sick PR. I'm obsessed with her personally. Yeah, metal as hell. Typical that the youngest kid acts like this, of course. This is how the Victorians pictured Lilith. I mean, hi, Gamley. Welcome. You don't need to whisper. Everyone can yell in here. Tolkien's glazing Shelob hard. Physical darkness was critical in forming the universe. Ungoliant was originally a creative force. I mean, yeah, you can't have light without dark, right? Love it. It's so good. I just love their age long she had dwelt. And then it's like, we're going to get some fucking paragraphs about this mean spider. I fucking love her. And Gollum had brought it to her, the sweeter meat that she lusted for. We'll see, he said often to himself when the evil mood was on him, as he walked the dangerous road from Emmenmuil to Morgul Vale. We'll see. It may well be, oh yes, it may well be that when she throws away the bones and the empty garments, we shall find it, we shall get it, the precious, a reward for poor Smeagol who brings nice food, and we'll save the precious as we promised, oh yes, and when we've got it safe, then she'll know it, oh yes, then we'll pay her back, my precious, then we'll pay everyone back. So he thought in an inner chamber of his cunning, which he still hoped to hide from her, even when he had come to her again and had bowed low before her while his companions slept. Ooh, fecundity. And as for Sauron, he knew where she lurked. It pleased him that she should dwell there hungry but unabated in malice, a more sure watch upon that ancient path into his land than any other that his skill could have devised. And orcs, they were useful slaves, but he had them in plenty. If now and again Shelob caught them to stay her appetite, she was welcome. He could spare them. And sometimes, as a man may cast a dainty to his cat, he calls her, but she owns him not. Tolkien knows about cats, dude. Sauron would send her prisoners that he had no better uses for. He would have them driven to her hole and report brought back to him of the play she made. So they both lived, delighting in their own devices, and feared no assault, nor wrath, nor any end of their wickedness. Never yet had any fly escaped from Shelob's webs, and the greater now was her rage and hunger. But nothing of this evil which they had stirred up against them did poor Sam know, except that a fear was growing on him, a menace which he could not see, and such a weight did it become that it was a burden to him to run, and his feet seemed leaden. Dread was round him, and enemies before him in the pass, and his master was in a fey mood, running heedlessly to meet them, turning his eyes away from the shadow behind and the deep gloom beneath the cliff upon his left. He looked ahead, and he saw two things that increased his dismay. He saw that the sword which Frodo still held unsheathed was glittering with blue flame, and he saw that, though the sky behind was now dark, still the window in the tower was glowing red. Orcs, he muttered. We'll never rush it like this. There's orcs about, and worse than orcs. Then, returning quickly to his long habit of secrecy, he closed his hand about the precious phial which he still bore. Red with his own living blood, his hand shone for a moment, and then he thrust the revealing light deep into a pocket near his breast and drew his elven cloak about him. Now he tried to quicken his pace. His master was gaining on him. Already he was some 20 strides ahead, flitting on like a shadow. Soon he would be lost to sight in that gray world. Hardly had Sam hidden the light of the star glass when she came. A little way ahead and to his left he saw suddenly issuing from a black hole of shadow under the cliff the most loathly shape that he had ever beheld, horrible beyond the horror of an evil dream. Most like a spider she was, but huger than the great hunting beasts, and more terrible than they because of the evil purpose in her remorseless eyes. Those same eyes that he had thought daunted and defeated, there they were, lit with a fell light again, clustering in her outthrust head. Great horns she had, and behind her short stalk-like neck was her huge swollen body, a vast bloated bag, swaying and sagging between her legs. Its great bulk was black, blotched with livid marks, but the belly underneath was pale and luminous, and gave forth a stench. Her legs were bent, with great knobbed joints high above her back, and hairs that stuck out like steel spines, and at each leg's end there was a claw. As soon as she had squeezed her soft, squelching body and its folded limbs out of the upper exit from her lair, she moved with a horrible speed, now running on her creaking legs, now making a sudden bound. She was between Sam and his master. Either she did not see Sam or she avoided him for the moment as the bearer of the light and fixed all her intent upon one prey, upon Frodo, bereft of his phial, running heedlessly up the path, unaware yet of his peril. Swiftly he ran, but Shelob was swifter. In a few leaps, she would have him. Sam gasped and gathered all his remaining breath to shout. "Look out behind!" he yelled. "Look out, master! I'm—" But suddenly, his cry was stifled. A long, clammy hand went over his mouth, and another caught him by the neck, while something wrapped itself about his leg. Taken off his guard, he toppled backwards into the arm of his attacker. "Got him!" hissed Gollum in his ear. "At last, my precious, we've got him, yes, the nasty hobbit. We takes this one. She'll get the other. Oh, yes, Shelob will get him, not Smeagol. He promised he wouldn't hurt Master at all. But he's got you, you nasty, filthy little sneak." He spat on Sam's neck. Fury at the treachery and desperation at the delay when his master was in deadly peril gave to Sam a sudden violence and strength that was far beyond anything that Gollum had expected from this slow, stupid hobbit as he thought him. Not Gollum himself could have twisted more quickly or more fiercely. His hold on Sam's mouth slipped, and Sam ducked and lunged forward again, trying to tear away from the grip on his neck. His sword was still in his hand, and on his left arm, hanging by its thong, was Faramir's staff. Desperately, he tried to turn and stab his enemy, but Gollum was too quick. His long right arm shot out, and he grabbed Sam's wrist. His fingers were like a vice. Slowly and relentlessly, he bent the hand down and forward till with a cry of pain, Sam released the sword and it fell to the ground, and all the while Gollum's other hand was tightening on Sam's throat. Then Sam played his last trick. With all his strength, he pulled away and got his feet firmly planted, and then suddenly he drove his legs against the ground and with his whole force hurled himself backwards. Not expecting even this simple trick from Sam, Gollum fell over with Sam on top, and he received the weight of the sturdy hobbit on his stomach. A sharp hiss came out of him, and for a second his hand upon Sam's throat loosened, but his fingers still gripped the sword hand. Sam tore himself forward and away and stood up, and then quickly he wheeled away to his right, pivoted on the wrist held by Gollum. Laying hold of the staff with his left hand, Sam swung it up, and down it came with a whistling crack on Gollum's outstretched arm, just below the elbow. Fucking ooh! Ouch! With a squeal, Gollum let go. Then Sam waded in. Not waiting to change the staff from left to right, he dealt another savage blow. Quick as a snake, Gollum slithered aside, and the stroke aimed at his head fell across his back. The staff cracked and broke. That was enough for him. Grabbing from behind, it was an old game of his, and seldom had he failed in it. But this time, misled by spite, he had made the mistake of speaking and gloating before he had both hands on his victim's neck. Everything had gone wrong with his beautiful plan since that horrible light had so unexpectedly appeared in the darkness. And now he was face to face with a furious enemy, little less than his own size. The fight was not for him. Sam swept up his sword from the ground and raised it. Gollum squealed, and springing aside onto all fours, he jumped away in one big bound like a frog. Before Sam could reach him, he was off, running with amazing speed back towards the tunnel. Sword in hand, Sam went after him. For the moment, he had forgotten everything else but the red fury in his brain and the desire to kill Gollum. But before he could overtake him, Gollum was gone. Then, as the dark hole stood before him, and the stench came out to meet him, like a clap of thunder the thought of Frodo and the monster smote upon Sam's mind. He spun round and rushed wildly up the path, calling and calling his master's name. He was too late. So far, Gollum's plot had succeeded. That's that chapter done. Oh my god, fam. All right, I'll read chat in a second, but I just need to go back to the start of this and the description of the first parts of Shelob's tunnel being just utterly devoid of any sense. You can't see anything, you can't hear anything, you can only smell this horrifying stench, to the point that it's dulling your sense of touch. Has anyone ever stood in a fully soundproof room before? Because I imagine that's what it's like, where the only thing you can really hear is the blood pumping in your ears, a kind of pressure that makes you feel like you're going to go insane. Sensory deprivation does not work for me, in case that's not clear, but that seems to be what's kind of going on in the tunnel. And also just the thought of it being completely and utterly dark to the point that usually if you can't see, all of your other senses become heightened, but because of the stench and the nature of Shelob's lair, all of your senses are dulled. How utterly fucking terrifying. How horrible. Ooh. And then, I'm loving all the descriptions of my evil girl. I'm fucking loving it. And then the relationship between Sauron and Shelob, I love that it's Sauron knows where she's at. He knows she's there. He knows what she's up to. He doesn't care if she eats all his orcs and whatever. He calls her his cat, but she owns him not. Love that dynamic of a cat owning its owner, because we all know that's how cats do be. Most like a spider she was, and yet unlike, but most her fucking hair stuck out like steel spines, so awful. I do really enjoy the Peter Jackson portrayal of Shelob. I think it's really good. But her soft, squelching body, ugh. A vast bloated bag. Ugh. It's horrible. I love it. It's so good. All right, chat. What are we talking about? Fun fact, fecundity, rot that creates life, was a key part of medieval Marian, Virgin Mary imagery. Yeah, 100%. Again, you can't have light without utter darkness. So in order for goodness to exist in the world, there has to be utter evil, I think, is kind of the idea here. And Shelob is just the physical manifestation of utter evil, no redeeming quality. Her vomit is darkness and filth. I love her. Per Tolkien, there's not much overt Christian allegory, but if Eru equals God of Abraham and Varda equals Mary, Mother of Jesus, yes. I personally prefer not to read any Christian allegory into Lord of the Rings, despite the fact that Tolkien himself was very Catholic and very devout. There is literally only one letter in which Tolkien relates Lord of the Rings to Christianity, and that's a letter that he wrote to a reverend. So he was appealing to his audience on that one. But elsewhere, he says Lord of the Rings is not a Christian story. He makes it very clear. And, we can draw parallels between the biblical fable and Lord of the Rings, for sure. I think that's perfectly valid. But I personally do not read it as such. And I do think it very quickly can lead down a path of unfounded comparison, let's say, to be this equals that and this equals that. We have Narnia for that, right? Aslan is God. We all know that one. But yeah, not to say it's not a valid reading, Zephyr, 100%. it is, but that's not how I prefer to kind of read it. I do think the thing stands alone on its own merits much more firmly than as an allegory for any kind of Christian symbolism. Gamley grabbing from behind is his game. Come on. I also thought it was interesting that Sam is described as being smaller than Gollum. Now Gollum was face to face with a furious enemy, little less than his own size, which to me kind of speaks to the idea that hobbits used to be larger than they are, like they've been dwindling as the years go by. And Gollum's like, what, thousands of years old at this point for however long he's had the ring. So yeah, that makes sense to me. It's fucking like, ooh. Really creepy to think about Gollum being slightly larger than Frodo and Sam. I don't like that. Let's see. But yeah, just the idea of him like needing to get both hands on your throat in order for his little plan to succeed, fucking horrifying. And yeah, Zephyr, fully soundproof rooms will make you nuts. That's why solitary confinement is a torture and a punishment. SH, I read less modern Christian allegory, but more medievalism and how you can't get rid of Christianity from medieval studies. Like he was an academic of post-Roman England. 110%. Yes. And like, I'm being delusional, I realize, when I say like I prefer not to read it that way because Tolkien said so. Because obviously, like he wrote the thing and he was very much influenced by his own beliefs when he was writing the thing, whether consciously or not. Like I did do a whole video about, is the author dead? Does it matter? Blah, blah, blah. But like he does insist over and over. He's like, it doesn't have anything to do with me. Please like keep me out of it, whatever. And I personally do my best as a reader to like honor that wish of his, even if it's silly. And yeah, like he did translations of Beowulf and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. We know what Tolkien's provenance was. Like we know what his area of expertise was. And I know I'm fighting a losing battle on this one. I'm rolling a big rock up a hill, but when he says it's not a Christian story, I tend to believe him. But again, I do think the fecundity line, like the idea of there needing to be like rot that begets life, that to me is very important. That makes a shitload of sense. Yeah, proto hobbit somehow 6'5" and jacked. Yeah, just a regular man, right? And yeah, Zephyr, Tolkien says the only Christian allegory in Lord of the Rings is Eru is God, which does make sense. We should not look for Christian allegory in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, letter 153. Thank you. I agree. I do think I'm reading it correctly. And like, hey, for fun, let's look at letter 153. I've got it right here. Let's have a look. 132. All right, 153, baby. Let's see. Ooh, it's a big boy. Oh, the other thing in this chapter is when Sam thinks about Tom Bombadil. Let's zoom in on that real quick because there's mention of Tom in this letter, which I have open. We'll get back to that. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I wish old Tom was near us now. Then, as he stood, darkness about him and a blackness of despair and anger in his heart, it seemed to him that he saw a light in his mind, almost unbearably bright at first, as a sun ray to the eyes of one long hidden in a windowless pit. Then the light became color, green, gold, silver, white, far off as in a little picture drawn by elven fingers. He saw the Lady Galadriel standing on the grass in Lorien, and gifts were in her hands. For you I have prepared this. So there is something here, I think, about latent magic in Middle-earth, which I think is the only magic in Middle-earth. Like there's not a magical system, but magic does exist everywhere. It's in the air. It's like electricity, where just the mere thought of Tom Bombadil brings Tom Bombadil kind of marching back in, showing him color and light and reminding Sam like, oh yeah, Galadriel gave a gift of light. Maybe use that. Take this, you'll need it later. I really like that a lot because Tom just appears at need. So like he appears in Sam's mind when need is greatest. I think that's really nice. And then of course it reminds them of the File of Galadriel. But let me get into this letter 153, which Zephyr, I fucking love that you just have that on reference, dog. I need to learn from you, genuinely. Every time you comment on any of my shit, I learn something new, and I love it. So let's see. Ooh, Peter Hastings wrote expressing enthusiasm for The Lord of the Rings, but asked if Tolkien had not overstepped the mark in metaphysical matters. Bold. All right, let's see. Tolkien opens this letter of September 1954. Thank you very much for your long letter. Shade. All right, let's see. I have, of course, already considered all the points that you raise. I love it. Tolkien's like, don't tell me shit. We differ entirely about the nature of the relation of subcreation to creation. Let's see. Ooh, I need to dig right into this. This is a good one. I don't think Tom needs philosophizing about and is not improved by it. Let's see. Right, okay, Zephyr, I think I'm finding what you're talking about. As for whose authority decides these things, the immediate authorities are the Valar, the powers or authorities, the gods. But they are only created spirits, of high angelic order, we should say, with their attendant lesser angels, reverend, therefore, but not worshipful, and though potently subcreative and resident on earth to which they are bound by love, having assisted in its making and ordering, they cannot by their own will alter any fundamental provision. Ooh, they called upon the One in the crisis of the rebellion of Numenor, when the Númenóreans attempted to take the Undying Land by force of a great armada in their lust for corporal immortality, which necessitated a catastrophic change in the shape of the earth. Immortality and mortality being the special gifts of God to the Eruhini, in whose conception and creation the Valar had no part at all, it must be assumed that no alteration of their fundamental kind could be effected by the Valar even in one case. The cases of Luthien and Tuor, and in the position of their descendants was a direct act of God. Ooh, and the entering into men of the elven strain is indeed represented as part of a divine plan for the ennoblement of the human race from the beginning destined to replace the elves. Yeah, okay. Let's see. I've used subcreation in a special way to make visible and physical the effects of sin or misused free will by men. Free will is derivative, Yeah. Okay, really interesting that, like, he's referring to Eru as he with a capital H, the way that we call God. Let's see. And using God synonymously with Eru. Okay, this I think is relevant. Now, you will reasonably say, I am taking myself even more seriously than you did, and making a great song and oration about a good tale, which admittedly owes its similitude to mere craft. It is so. But the things I have scribbled about arise in some form or another from all writing or art that is not careful to dwell within the walls of observed fact. So I appreciate Tolkien's will here to, like, entertain this guy, and I will read this entire letter and dig into more of it, Zephyr. But yeah, I do think I'm right, and I do think it's fair to say that God and Eru are parallels because they're the source of all creation, according to monotheistic Christianity and also to Tolkien's system of subcreation. But that's kind of where the similarities stop, I think. Yeah, taking it too serious and in the wrong direction. Magic is a product of nature and technology in Arda. Yeah, like it's just kind of part and parcel of the world. Like I need to make a video about how people on Reddit don't know how to read. No offense, people of Reddit, but like they're like, what's the magic system in Middle Earth? Like, how come Gandalf doesn't have a spell book with him? And it's like, guys, tell me Harry Potter was your first fantasy book without fucking telling me. And then SH raised a good point, I also thought of the corrupted natural fecundity as relating to Entwives. There's something about women in Rot in Lord of the Rings and in Middle Earth, right? Like there's something about I was talking to my husband about this the other day because we were chatting about Entwives and Ents and how I want to make a video about Entwives, but it's been taking me a while because my feelings about it are really complicated in the sense that the way that Treebeard talks about Entwives is like he kind of disparages their choices to grow orchards and to kind of command plants to grow according to the will of the Entwives rather than to be just kind of guided as the Ents would do. Ironic given the name of the woods. Yeah, there's a stark contrast between rot and crystal clear light or water with women. Exactly. We have Goldberry and we have Galadriel on one end, and we have Shelob and the Entwives on the other. Let me fucking grab this passage about Entwives from the Treebeard chapter real quick. Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. When the world was young, and the woods were wide and wild, the Ents and the Entwives, and there were Ent maidens then. Ah, the loveliness of Fimbrethiel. Fimbrethiel? Fimbrethiel of Wanlim the Lightfooted in the days of our youth. They walked together and they housed together. But our hearts did not go on growing the same way. The Ents gave their love to things that they met in the world, and the Entwives gave their thought to other things, for the Ents loved the great trees and the wild woods and the slopes of the high hills, and they drank of the mountain streams, and ate only such fruit as the trees let fall in their path, and they learned of the elves and spoke with the trees. But the Entwives gave their minds to the lesser trees, and to the meads in the sunshine beyond the feet of the forests, and they saw the sloe in the thicket, and the wild apple and the cherry blossoming in spring, and the green herbs in the waterlands in summer, and the seeding grasses in the autumn fields. They did not desire to speak with these things, but they wished them to hear and obey what was said to them. The Entwives ordered them to grow according to their wishes, and bear leaf and fruit to their liking, for the Entwives desired order, and plenty, and peace, by which they meant that things should remain where they had set them. Which to me just speaks of control. So the Entwives made gardens to live in, but we Ents went on wandering, and we only came to the gardens now and again. Then, when the darkness came in the north, the Entwives crossed the great river and made new gardens and tilled new fields, and we saw them more seldom. After the darkness was overthrown, the land of the Entwives blossomed richly, and their fields were full of corn. Many men learned the crafts of the Entwives and honored them greatly, but we were only a legend to them, a secret in the heart of the forest. Yet, here we still are, while all the gardens of the Entwives are wasted. Men call them the Brown Lands now. So, I mean, it's like a pretty obvious, like, we choose to live and let live. The Entwives decided to exert control upon the land, and look how it turned out for them. The lands are wasted. Like, I don't know. There's something in there about Tolkien, agriculture, and industrialization. And I'm going to dig more into it when I get around to making that video. But I do think it speaks to the kind of fecundity theme. And I think it bears looking at Rosie and Eowyn too. Aren't they both gardening at the end of the book? I believe so. Rosie for sure is. And also, Rosie and Sam beget a golden haired daughter named Eleanor, when golden hair is rare amongst hobbits, which again kind of speaks to that like very obvious imagery and theme of lightness. But yeah, Eowyn gardening, I actually need to look into. We're going to get to Return of the King soon enough anyway. We'll find out. But yeah. And then Eowyn is described as being fair and cold, which again, I do think speaks to kind of like snow or a chilliness and like a cold light. But she exists amongst great darkness in the sense that, again, I believe that the Rohirrim are just obsessed with death, guided by death. They draw their power and magic from death. So I think her motivation through death to ride to battle, and then her survival despite the black breath that she gets after stabbing the Witch King. I don't know. That kind of falls in line with this theme as well. I feel like she and Faramir retire to some kind of countryside. Maybe that's my fanfic. I think it might be fanfic, but it's like a really good headcanon. And also, I can't remember where they end up living. I think Aragorn gifts Faramir like a region, but he's still the steward of Gondor. I don't remember, dude. I need to read it. But yeah, interesting stuff we're bringing up here, guys. I really like this. And yeah, I'm just obsessed with like Shelob as like a being of rot and filth and darkness. Um, Zephyr, women equals preservation in the legendarium. Entwives left because the Ents were refusing agriculture. Yep, Yavanna left Aule. Entwives leaving Ents. Intriguing parallels. So yeah, there's lots here. Lots to look at and think about. But yeah, I'll read letter 153 more thoroughly because I've read it before. I've read all of them, but like I don't remember all of them exactly. And I do need to make a video about that letter he wrote to a reverend and fucking lay some of this shit to rest. Because honestly, the number of people in my comments who don't even watch the entire video and then feel the need to comment on it, oh, buddy, makes me tired, but it's okay, whatever. So yeah. Thank y'all for being here for this extended 20-minute long vaguely related discussion at the end of Shelob's Lair. Next week, we're finishing the Two Towers, fam. We've got the Choices of Master Samwise, and then that's it. And we're done with this book, and then it's on to Return of the King. Time is fucking flying, my dude. When we get into Return of the King, because it's December and my work should be slowing down a little bit, I think, I might start doing 2 chapters per week. We'll see. I'm not in a hurry to finish, but I do fucking love Return of the King, so I'm going to want to blast through it. After the Minas Tirith chapter, of course, because that one's like, I don't know, 600 pages long. It's super long. But yeah, next week we'll do the Choices of Master Samwise. Excuse me. And I'll try to give myself some time to like look deeper into what we talked about today. But I'm still fucking trying to finish this Pippin video, man. So that's my top priority. And then ongoing research about satellite topics and fecundity and rot and light and dark and where God is at in the text. All very interesting. But we'll be getting to that. Will I read the appendices? Probably, yeah, Gamley. I probably won't read the one about like how to pronounce things in Elvish, but I'll read the like ones that deal with histories and the calendars and all of that. I think those are interesting. We'll at least do the highlights of the appendices. Tolkien told Christopher that your relationship with your wife should be more like partners in a shipwreck more than your guiding star. Yeah, I mean, don't put that woman on a pedestal. She's going to fall down. But also, like, leave room on that door after the shipwreck. Come on. 2 people could have fit on that door. Rose. But yeah, I think that's very sweet. So yeah, I am going to go now. The sun's going down and I need to walk my dog. But I so appreciate y'all being here with me as usual. Thank you for raising stuff in the chat. Thank you for challenging me. I love it. And yeah, if you want to join the Discord, let me know. Leave a comment somewhere. I'll figure out how to get the link to you. And thank you, Gamley, for being here. Love when you come. I love when all of y'all join me. Would be amazing if the Pippin video is just a summary of Scottie Pippen's career. You've told us all. How are you going to blow up my spot like this, Otaris? Honestly, you never come to my chat and then you show up just to blow up my entire fucking spot. I love basketball. Sue me. All right. I will see y'all next week. I'll post as per usual when it's happening. Have a good night and thank you. Don't go down any tunnels.